Welcome. Tonight's story is real, emotional, and meant to be heard quietly. One gentle question: what time is it where you are right now? Story 1. The day I found my wife's other life. I always thought the smell of betrayal would be something sharp, like gunpowder or ozone. I never imagined it would smell like lavender laundry detergent and the faint, sweet decay of forgotten apples. That's what hit me first when I pushed open the door to the house that wasn't mine. The house my wife, Chloe, had been paying the mortgage on for 7 years. My name is David. This is the story of how I discovered my marriage was a shared investment, and my wife had been quietly buying stock in a different future. Our normal was a comfortable suburban script. Mornings were a ballet of coffee, packed lunches, and the gentle chaos of getting our 2 daughters, Lily and Emma, aged 8 and 6, off to school. Chloe was a master of the routine. Her to-do lists were color-coded, our calendar was a mosaic of synchronized Google alerts, and our life ran with the quiet hum of a well-maintained engine. I was the dreamer, the writer who worked from a home office, crafting content for corporate clients. She was the architect, the CPA who built the structures that allowed my dreams to have a solid foundation. We were a team. At least, that's what I told myself every time I kissed her goodbye as she headed to her downtown firm, her blonde bob perfect, her smile crisp as a new dollar bill. The cracks were there, but I'd learned to step over them. They were in the way she'd sometimes look at her phone with a softness that never appeared when she looked at me. They were in the girls' weekends that seemed to happen with clockwork regularity every quarter, weekends from which she'd return looking rested but distant, her phone permanently face down on the counter. They were in the separate bank account she'd opened years ago just for household emergencies and my little projects, David. It's simpler this way. I believed her. Trust wasn't something we built. It was the air we breathed, or so I thought. The first real tremor came from a source so mundane it was almost insulting. I was reconciling our joint credit card statement, a task Chloe usually handled but she'd been swamped. A charge from a local garden center, Smith Sons Nursery, for $287.5. It wasn't the amount. It was the location. Smith Sons was 40 minutes away, in a direction Chloe never traveled. We shopped at the big box home improvement store 5 minutes down the road. I mentioned it that night over pasta. Oh, that, she said, not looking up from her tablet. I took a client there. She was looking for specific ornamental grasses for her patio. I just put it on our card and she reimbursed me in cash. I must have forgotten to note it. It was plausible. She was meticulous, but she was also human. She could forget. But the explanation felt recited, a little too smooth. I let it go, burying the unease under a layer of self-reproach. Was I becoming that husband? Paranoid, suspicious, small. But the seed was planted. A week later, a wrong turn on my way back from a meeting, a genuine mistake took me past Smith Sons. On a whim, I pulled in. The place was charming, a family-run operation with greenhouses and a quaint farmhouse-style office. I asked the elderly man at the register about ornamental grasses, fumbling through. Story 2. The text on my husband's second phone. I never thought the man who held my hand through 2 labors would be the same man I'd have to protect my children from. The realization didn't come in a screaming match or a dramatic courtroom scene. It came in the silent, blue glow of a phone screen in our suburban garage. The smell of gasoline and damp concrete, suddenly the most profound scent of betrayal. My name is Maya. For 12 years, my life was a series of carefully managed routines. Mornings were a symphony of lunchbox packing, finding lost shoes, and kissing Ben goodbye as he headed to his architecture firm. Our home was a quiet, beautiful shell in a neighborhood of identical shells, filled with the comfortable clutter of family life soccer cleats by the door, crayon drawings on the fridge, a mortgage we were steadily chipping away at. Ben was a good father, attentive, playful. He remembered parent-teacher conferences and knew how to braid our daughter's hair. But there were cracks, subtle as hairline fractures in China. The way he'd sometimes look at me when I was talking, his eyes focused just over my shoulder, already somewhere else. The new passcode on his phone explained away with a laugh about cybersecurity at work. The late nights at the office that had become more frequent in the last year, always accompanied by a weary, apologetic kiss on my forehead. I told myself it was the stress of his big project, the pressure of providing. I poured my worry into keeping our home perfect, as if the right throw pillows and a home-cooked meal could anchor him to us. Have you ever had a gut feeling so loud it was like a constant hum in your ears, but you turned up the volume of your daily life just to drown it out? That's what I did, for months. The discovery was absurdly mundane. It was a Tuesday. Ben was supposedly at a client dinner. He'd been cleaning out the garage, a task he always promised to do. Behind a stack of old holiday decorations and a box of college textbooks, I found his old gym bag. I went to move it and felt a solid weight. Not shoes. I unzipped it. Inside, wrapped in a sweat-stained t-shirt, was a phone. A cheap prepaid smartphone, the kind you buy at a convenience store. It was off. My heart didn't hammer, it just sank, a cold, heavy stone dropping into my stomach. I carried it inside, my fingers leaving prints on the dusty plastic. I sat at our kitchen island, the heart of our home, and pressed the power button. It asked for a 4-digit code. Without thinking, I typed in our daughter's birthday. The screen unlocked. The world didn't shatter, it just dissolved into pixels of pure, undeniable truth. There were no romantic texts, no love letters. This was worse. It was a ledger, spreadsheets saved as simple notes, lists of dates, amounts, and acronyms I didn't understand. Transaction histories from payment apps I'd never heard of. And then the messages. Brief, brutal exchanges with someone named K. Transfer went through. Need more by the 15th. She's getting suspicious about the accounts. That was me. The final nail was a photo. It was a screenshot of our joint savings account dashboard, the balance circled in red. Our safety net, the college fund starter, the emergency money. Half of it was gone. The date on the screenshot was from 2 days after Wed celebrated our anniversary with a fancy dinner, where he'd toasted to our future. I felt nothing. I was a void. I carefully placed the phone back in the bag, returned the bag to its exact spot, and finished cleaning the garage. I made mac and cheese for the kids, helped with homework, read bedtime stories. I was an automaton programmed for normalcy. That night, lying beside Ben's sleeping form, I stared at the ceiling and made a plan. Not an emotional plan, a tactical one. I needed evidence. I needed to understand. The next day, I called in sick to my part-time job and went to the library, using their computers to research the acronyms. They were related to cryptocurrency, high-risk trading. I accessed our bank statements online, ones he thought I never looked at. The transfers were clever, masked as payments to fake vendors. Home Repairs LLC, Utilities Advance. Thousands of dollars siphoned off over 18 months. I confronted him on a Friday evening. The kids were at a sleepover. I didn't yell. I placed the second phone on the coffee table between us next to a printed bank statement. Ben, I said, my voice eerily calm, you need to explain this to me, all of it. His face cycled through stages, shock, fear, a flash of anger, and then a devastating collapse. He didn't try to deny it. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. The story poured out in ragged fragments. He'd gotten in over his head with crypto investments, trying to make a big score to pay off the mortgage faster. He'd lost. Then he'd borrowed from a private lender K to try and win it back. He'd lost more. The interest was predatory. He'd been using our joint money, then his 401k, and had started lying to his firm about expenses to cover the minimum payments. He was drowning, and he'd been hiding it, trying to fix it before I ever found out. I was trying to protect you, he sobbed. For a week I believed that, or I wanted to. We moved through the house like ghosts. He was repentant, desperate. He showed me his plan to sell his car, to take on extra work. He promised to cut all ties with Kay, to get a second job, to go to financial counseling. We had a long, tearful talk about trauma and stress and how the pressure to provide had broken him. I saw the broken boy inside the man, and my heart stupidly ached for him. We slept in the same bed, held each other, and talked about a path forward. It was a fragile, painful, false hope, but it was a hope. The true climax came not with a bang, but with a whisper. It was during one of those reconciliation talks. He was detailing his repayment plan, his voice full of shaky conviction. And once we clear the debt to Kay, we can start rebuilding. I've learned my lesson, Maya. "He'll never risk our family again." Something in his phrasing snagged in my mind. The debt to K, I repeated slowly. "Ben, who is K?" He hesitated. "Just a guy. A finance guy I met online." "What's his full name?" A longer pause. "I don't know. It was all anonymous for discretion." "You took a massive, high-interest loan from a stranger online whose name you don't know." The ice was back in my veins. "It's how these things work." He insisted, defensive now. "Show me," I said, my voice quiet and final. "Show me the original agreement, the loan docs, your communications with him before you owed him money." He couldn't. He stammered, he backtracked. The story began to warp and change. Kay was a former colleague. No, a friend of a friend. The excuses were paper-thin, dissolving under the slightest pressure. I just watched him, this man I'd loved for over a decade, unravel his own lie in real time. The emotional confrontation wasn't about rage. It was about the death of trust. The last vestige of belief I had in his narrative evaporated, leaving a chilling, absolute certainty. "Stop," I finally said. The word hung in the air. "Just stop talking, Ben." I looked at him, really looked. The panic in his eyes wasn't just about being caught. It was the panic of a story collapsing. This wasn't an investment gone wrong. This wasn't a desperate attempt to provide. You're lying about the lie. What is it? Gambling? Something else? Who is Kay really? The silence that followed was the loudest sound I've ever heard. He didn't answer. He just looked at the floor, his silence a confession far deeper than any words. In that moment, I didn't see my husband. I saw a stranger who had shared my bed and emptied my children's future to feed a habit or a secret I couldn't even comprehend. The man I loved was gone, if he had ever existed at all. I moved out that weekend with the kids. I filed for divorce and a restraining order on our assets. Legal battle is ugly. He claims it was all a mistake, a financial misstep. His lawyer paints me as unforgiving, as abandoning him in a time of crisis. My lawyer uses the second phone, the hidden records, the unverifiable K, to argue for financial fraud and full custody. We see each other now only in the harsh, fluorescent light of the courtroom hallway, where we are just case numbers and opposing affidavits. The quiet suburban home is on the market. The future is a blank, frightening page. I am a mother of two, learning to sleep alone in a small apartment, trying to explain to my children why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore without poisoning their love for him. Some days I am strong. Some days I cry in the shower so they want here. I look at my hands sometimes and don't recognize them. They look like the hands of someone who has had to fight, and they are. The greatest betrayal wasn't the loss of money, but the theft of my reality made me doubt my own sanity and the sanctity of our own home. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's one of the hardest things I've ever shared. If you've ever faced a betrayal that made you question everything, or if you're going through something similar, please know you're not alone. Share your thoughts or your own stories in the comments below. Your words might be the comfort someone else needs to hear. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more real stories about love, survival, and the messy truth of relationships. Story 3. The text that ended our family. I have to start by telling you that I didn't find it. My 7-year-old daughter, Lily, did. She was playing a game on my phone, something about matching candies, when she suddenly held it up to me, her little brow furrowed. "Mommy," she said. Her voice so small and confused it immediately pricked my heart. "Who's the other Lily?" And on that screen, in the cold, blue light of a messaging app I never used, was a thread. The contact name was Client Anderson, but the last message, sent just an hour earlier, read, "Can't wait to see you and our Lily tomorrow. Tell my girl I love her. D. David, my husband of 12 years, the father of my Lily." I think my soul left my body for a second. I just stared at my daughter's innocent face, her eyes the same hazel as her father's, and the world I knew silently exploded into a billion unrecognizable pieces. Our normal was a quiet, comfortable suburban life. I'm Sarah. David and I met in college, two overly serious business majors who found solace in each other's quiet ambition. We built a life with spreadsheets and 5-year plans. Our house was a testament to age, orderly, with a perfectly manicured lawn and a mortgage we could comfortably afford on his engineering salary and my part-time bookkeeping. Our mornings were a well-oiled machine. David would make the coffee, strong and black, while I packed Lily's lunch. He'd kiss the top of my head, his scent of soap and aftershave familiar as my own skin, and say, "Love you, Sar. Have a good day." I'd echo it back, never once doubting the words. The cracks, though you never see them as cracks until you're staring into the abyss they've created. They were just quirks. His business trips to a city just 2 hours away had become slightly more frequent. He was always on his phone, but he worked in client management, so of course he was. He'd bought a new, more secure phone case 6 months ago, joking that he was too clumsy. And sometimes, when he thought I was asleep, I'd feel him just looking at me in the dark. I'd assumed it was affection. Now I know it was the weight of a double life pressing down on him. Have you ever had a gut feeling you chose to ignore? A tiny voice that whispers something is off, but you dismiss it because the alternative truth is too world-shattering to entertain. I'd silenced that voice for years, blaming my own insecurities, telling myself I was lucky to have such a stable, loving man. I think we do that, don't we? We construct this beautiful, fragile palace of normalcy, and we refuse to hear the creaking of the foundations because to acknowledge it means the whole thing might come down. The escalation wasn't a dramatic fight. It was a slow, sickening unraveling in the silence of my own home after I'd put Lily to bed, telling her a story through a throat so tight I could barely breathe. I took my phone into the walk-in closet, sitting among David's neatly hung shirts. I opened the messaging app. Client Anderson was a woman named Alina. The thread went back 3 years. 3 years. It was a tapestry of a parallel life. Pictures of a little girl, a toddler with David's smile, named Lily, our daughter's name. He'd named his secret daughter after our child. There were logistics about daycare, pediatrician appointments, complaints about her sleep schedule that mirrored our own conversations. There were dates. Can't wait for our weekend at the cabin. The cabin he'd told me he was renovating for a client. There was love. You and Lily are my real happiness, he'd written. The physical feeling was like being submerged in ice water. I couldn't get air. My fingers traced the words on the screen, the evidence of my own oblivion. I scrolled up to a picture shed sent. It was David, looking younger and more relaxed than I'd seen him in a decade, holding a cake with 2 candles, a little girl beaming in his arms. The backdrop was a living room I didn't recognize, filled with toys and a purple sofa. It was a home. Their home. There was a moment of false hope, a bizarre, reflexive instinct to rationalize. Maybe it was an elaborate, cruel joke. Maybe it was a client who was obsessed with him, and he was just playing along to keep the account. My mind, the same mind that built our life on logic, scrambled for any explanation that didn't end with me being a fool, with my daughter's family being a lie. I even thought, wildly, that I should call him and ask him to explain, that he would have a reason that would make it all okay. But then I looked at the date on the birthday picture. It was from last month. On that day, David had been stuck at the office working on a deadline. He'd come home at midnight with a box of my favorite chocolates, saying he felt bad for working so late. The chocolates tasted like ash in my memory now. The two realities crashed together and the hope evaporated, leaving a hollow, howling certainty. The climax wasn't when he came home. It was hours later. I sat in the dark living room, the only light from the street lamp filtering through the blinds. I had printed a few key messages and the birthday photo, the pages sitting on the coffee table like a bomb. I heard his key in the lock, the familiar sigh as he dropped his briefcase. "Sar," he called out, his voice tired. "You up?" He flipped on the light and flinched when he saw me. "Hey, what's wrong? Is Lily okay?" The concern in his voice was so genuine it was disorienting. This was the performance of a lifetime. I just pointed to the papers. He walked over, his smile fading as he picked them up. I watched his face. I saw the color drain, the professional composure he wore like armor completely shatter. His shoulders slumped and he sank onto the sofa, the pages falling from his hands. There was no denial, no fight, just a long, deafening silence. "Say something," I finally whispered, my voice raw. He looked at me, and his eyes were filled with a pain so deep it almost tricked me into feeling sorry for him. "Her name is Lillian," he said, as if that was the important part. "She's 2. Alina we met through work. It wasn't supposed to be, but then she got pregnant." He spoke in a monotone, detailing a 5-year relationship, a second family he supported from our joint account, the double birthdays, the Christmases he split. He talked about the stress of it, the guilt that was eating him alive. He said he stayed for me and for our Lily because he couldn't bear to hurt us. The sheer audacity of that his betrayal was a twisted form of loyalty unlocked a rage in me I never knew I possessed. "You have another daughter with my name." I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat. "You gave her my daughter's name. How could you? What is wrong with you?" He just put his head in his hands and cried. And in that moment, the man I loved vanished. In his place was a stranger, a man capable of a deception so vast and meticulous it made me question every single moment of our last decade together. The story doesn't end with a neat resolution. There is no resolution. There is a divorce, currently grinding its way through the courts, bitterly contested because of money and assets he diverted. There is a little girl named Lillian who is, irrevocably, my daughter's half-sister. There is a childhood bedroom, my own, that I moved back into with my Lily at my parents' house. The hardest part now isn't the anger, it's the quiet moments. When Lily asks why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore, or when she draws a picture of our family and includes a little friend she met at Daddy's new apartment. I look at my daughter and I see his eyes, and I have to love her twice as much to separate her from the hurt he caused. I am learning, day by day, that survival isn't about getting over it. It's about building a new life on the ruins of the old, knowing some fractures never truly heal. They just become a part of the landscape you learn to navigate. Thank you for listening to my story. It's the first time I've really told it, start to finish, and it's strangely cathartic to put it out there. If you've ever faced a betrayal that rewired your understanding of reality, you're not alone. Please share your own experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Your stories remind us all of our resilience. If this resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more real, raw stories about the complexities of love, family, and learning to survive. Story 4. The night I found his other phone. I found the phone in the pocket of his winter coat, the one he hadn't worn since March. It was a Tuesday. The kind of quiet, unremarkable evening that makes you believe, for a moment, that your life is exactly what it appears to be. I was Sarah, the woman who had been married to Michael for 14 years. We had a daughter, Lily, who was 10 and believed her father hung the moon. We had a mortgage on a quiet suburban home in a neighborhood where the biggest scandal was usually someone forgetting to bring in their recycling bins. I was clearing out the hall closet, a mundane task of seasonal rotation, when my fingers brushed against the hard, unfamiliar rectangle. I pulled it out, a sleek black smartphone fully charged, its screen glowing to life with a single tap. And in that cold, blue light, my entire world began to dissolve. Our normalcy was a carefully constructed thing. Mornings were a ballet of packing lunches, signing permission slips, and Michael kissing my forehead before he headed to his architecture firm. Evenings were homework at the kitchen island, debates over what to watch, and the comfortable silence of two people who believed they knew everything about each other. But the cracks were there, if you knew where to look. They were in the way he started taking his real phone into the bathroom with him, even for a shower. They were in the new passcode he set 6 months ago for security at work. They were in the vague, tired distance in his eyes when I'd ask about his day, a distance I'd chalked up to stress and the creeping fatigue of middle age. I told myself this was what long-term marriage became, deep, sometimes quiet love, not the frantic passion of our 20s. I told myself I was being paranoid, needy. I chose to believe the story we presented to the world because the alternative was too terrifying to entertain. Have you ever held a piece of evidence in your hand, something so mundane yet so catastrophic, that your brain simply refuses to process it? That moment in the hallway, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound, I felt split in two. One Sarah stood frozen, the cool glass of the screen against her thumb. The other Sarah was already screaming, a silent internal wail that started in her gut. I opened the phone. No passcode. That was the first betrayal, somehow the carelessness of it, as if my discovery wasn't even a possibility he considered. The messages were not hidden in some obscure folder. They were right there in the default messaging app. A thread with a name I didn't recognize. The preview of the last message sent just 3 days prior read, "Can't wait for Friday. Ill book the room. Miss you, Daddy." The word daddy didn't just hit me, it wrapped around my throat and squeezed. I scrolled, my vision tunneling. Photos. Intimate, explicit photos of a woman with laughing eyes in hotel rooms I didn't know. Talks of a future, plans for a trip to Napa. Questions about how and when he would tell me. The dates spanned 2 years. 2 years. Lily had been 8. Wed celebrated our 12th anniversary. Wed bought a new sofa. All while he had this entire other life humming along in his pocket. I didn't confront him that night. I placed the phone back in the coat pocket, hung the coat back up, and closed the closet door. I made dinner. I helped Lily with her math homework on fractions. I listened to Michael talk about a difficult client. I was an automaton, moving through the script of my life while my soul hovered somewhere near the ceiling, watching in detached horror. That week was a study in false hope. I'd catch him laughing at something Lily said, his face so open and kind, and I'd think this is the real man. That phone is a nightmare, a mistake. There's an explanation. I'd mentally draft scenarios. It was a work phone for a secret project. The messages were role play for some bizarre stress relief he was too embarrassed to share. It was a catfishing scheme. But the daddy echoed. The specific details of restaurants they'd been to, details that matched nights he'd told me he was working late. The false hope was a thin, fraying rope I clung to over a chasm. The climax didn't happen in a shouting match. It happened in our therapist's office, a place Wed gone to 6 months prior to improve our communication. I'd made the appointment under that guise, but I brought the phone. I placed it on the low table between us, next to a box of tissues. The room was quiet, beige, unbearably calm. Dr. Evans looked from me to Michael. "Sarah has something she'd like to share," I said, my voice eerily steady. Michael's face was curious, slightly concerned. Then I unlocked the phone, opened the message thread to E, and slid it toward him. I watched the color drain from his face. I saw the exact moment his carefully built facade crumbled, his jaw went slack. His eyes widened in pure, unadulterated panic, then flickered with a shame so profound it seemed to physically shrink him. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. It was the sound of 14 years disintegrating. He didn't deny it. He just stared at the phone, then at his hands, and whispered, "Her name is Emma. She's pregnant." The words weren't a bomb, they were a vacuum, sucking all the air, all the light, all the past and future out of the room. The other woman wasn't just an affair. She was a family, his other family. The story doesn't end with a neat resolution. There is no fierce, empowering scene of me throwing his clothes on the lawn. There is a numb, grinding process of lawyers, of explaining to a heartbroken 10-year-old that daddy won't be living at home anymore, of dividing books and pots and pans. The divorce is ongoing. The custody battle is bitter, complicated by his new, impending fatherhood. Some days I am rage incarnate. Other days I am just so terribly, deeply sad for the man I thought he was, for the life we built that he chose to hollow out from the inside. I am learning, minute by minute, what emotional survival truly means. It means getting out of bed. It means being present for Lily's tears. It means realizing that the quiet suburban home is now just a house, and I am a woman standing in its hallway, starting over from a place she never chose to be. Thank you for listening to my story. It's one of the hardest things I've ever shared. If you've ever faced a betrayal that rewired your understanding of reality, if you've had to find strength you never knew you had, please share your own experiences in the comments below. Let's be a community for each other. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real, raw accounts of the human heart. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more horror stories.